Hello, folks, and welcome to this hurricane short summary. We are going to be looking over the Atlantic Basin's 1971's Hurricane Ginger, a very interesting storm to say the least, which doesn't seem significant on paper at first. Ginger would originally form from a cold core low pressure system either very late on the 8th of September or very early on the 9th of September. Whichever one works, it still is a system that formed organized and now is traveling due northeast. By the 10th of September, Ginger is now named Ginger and is a tropical storm and is heading just straight east. Ginger becomes a hurricane the next day and starts to accelerate and also move a little bit more northeastwards rather than just straight eastwards. It would increase to Category 2 strength, reaching a minimum pressure of 959 millibars on the 13th of September, reaching a maximum wind speed of 110 miles per hour the next day, so on the 14th. Ginger would then, out in the middle of bum nowhere in the Atlantic Ocean, decrease in strength and start to slow significantly. It would be a minimal hurricane and meander for around 10 or so days, more than that, where after completing a loop, it would accelerate back westwards and then decrease speed again. During this time that it was performing a little dip in its track, it was seeded by Project Storm Fury from the 26th to the 29th. Project Storm Fury was a project to attempt to decrease the strength of tropical systems and only lasted for a few years, was not successful at all, and is something that I definitely need to make a video on. Project Storm Fury is pretty interesting. It's not the government conspiracy that the government's trying to increase storm strength. That frankly, I'm sorry, that's BS. This was an attempt to decrease storm strength, and it didn't work. On the 26th as well, Ginger absorbed Tropical Storm Janice, and for around 6 or so days from the time that it was executing this dip to when it became a Category 2 strength again, had a very unusually large eye for such a relatively organized system. Usually, the more organized a tropical system is, you generally see a tighter eye, but not in this case. On the 29th, Ginger reaches a secondary peak of 105 miles per hour, so it ramps back up to Category 2 strength, however, would decrease in strength back down to minimal hurricane strength, landfalling on Morehead City, North Carolina at 75 miles per hour on the 30th of September. Ginger would take a brief tour throughout North Carolina and southwestern Virginia before going back out into the Atlantic and being absorbed by a cold front on the 5th of October. Due to the way that hurricanes and tropical storms, especially in the northern hemisphere, generally work, most of the rain was seen on the eastward side of the hurricane of the system. That's where the system is the strongest. This ginger would cause one direct death and 10 million US dollars in damage, and cause 6 to 7 foot storm tides in North Carolina as well. Bermuda, on the other hand, when Ginger passed to the south of it, didn't impact it really at all, experienced gale force winds and very heavy waves. Atlantic Beach recorded 92-mile-per-hour wind gusts. Most of the monetary damage from Ginger was by crop damage. There was relatively little structural damage, but a lot of crops were destroyed. So again, not really significant on paper, but what makes Ginger actually really significant is that it is the longest lasting continuous hurricane in the entirety of the Atlantic basin. Ginger was a hurricane for 27 and a quarter days, which is a number of hours that is more than 72. I can guarantee you that. More than six. And although this is not the all-time record for being a hurricane, that goes to the 1899 San Siriaco hurricane, which was a hurricane for 28 whole hours. that is non-continuous, Ginger still holds the record for the longest lasting continuous hurricane strength, which was caused by its very meandering path. And also, throughout this whole time, it was accumulated cyclone energy, or ACE. This caused Ginger to still have the highest ACE of any system in the Atlantic that did not reach major hurricane strength, major hurricane being category 3 or above. This ACE is 44.2. This may seem low, but when you look at the average expected ACE climatologically in the Atlantic basin being 103, that is pretty high, which is surprising. Lastly, this was the last project of Project Storm Fury. Like I said, this was an utter failure of a project. It did not work. Every single time that they stopped seeding, it would ramp right back up in strength again. So essentially, for this thing to even work, you would need to be continuously seeding this thing, which would just be a massive waste. Did it cause Ginger to not strengthen further to category 2 for the second time? Probably not. No. The whole thing of this project was that silver iodide is dropped into the thing, and that causes all the moisture to have something to condensate onto, essentially trying to rain the system out. Essentially, what it's trying to do and make it waste all of this moisture. But that is something I can definitely talk more about in a video of Project Storm Fury and other projects just like it. With that said, folks, that is all that I have for Hurricane Ginger. I hope that you all learned something from this video. I certainly did while researching it, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Thank you all so much for watching.